I showed up on the wrong day. I confused the leasing agent, and somehow that mistake got me an apartment in one of the most expensive cities in America when I was living in a van. Let me tell you how God turned my biggest blunder into the miracle I'd been praying for. So I had been living and working in Everett, Washington. I lived in this small, sort of dingy, one-bedroom apartment or studio, and I had been working as a drug and alcohol counselor, and I wasn't happy. And I left that job to hopefully find a better job. Now, at the time after I left, I preferred to leave that apartment and that environment, which was sort of drug culture, a lot of street drugs being sold. My heart was set on living in Bellevue. That was a dream. Bellevue, Washington is across Lake Union from Seattle. It's part of the high-tech hub in Washington State. And I would love to live in Bellevue, although it's a very, very expensive city to live in. So I found a job in nearby Redmond. I didn't like the job very much, but I was blessed with being able to buy this Dodge van. It was wide, and so there was room enough to live in it, although it was cramped and I didn't like it too much. But it was a blessing from living in the Toyota going to a wide van, a Dodge van, and I had the front seat taken out. So there was more room. I had a mattress in there. I had my clothes. I could have nicely arranged and everything. So I worked, and then I got a better job. But my heart's desire was living in Bellevue, which was basically going to be unattainable. I mean, just impossible to find a place to live there, let alone be able to afford to live there. And here I am with a small, piddly-ass job. But I wanted to live there because I wanted to be able to either work in Seattle or one of the surrounding cities in the area. I mean, there's Microsoft, there's Google, there's SpaceX, there's other, big tech companies there. And downtown Bellevue also is a tech and big business hub. It's a very clean city, it's a very safe city, very expensive. So I was living in my van, and there came an ad. I was looking online for places to rent, and there was this one-bedroom apartment. It was in this sort of senior community apartment, and some of the apartments had to be rented at lower than the market rates in order to have I don't know if they were a non-profit or they had a certain tax bracket they could stay in or something like that if some of their apartments were rented below market rate. And they also were independent living. So I wasn't part of the caretaking program that they had going on there for a lot of their tenants. So I went in and I filled out an application, and the leasing agent gave me an appointment. And so it was supposed to be in a couple of days or something like that. There were people ahead of me in line. They had appointments. Now, she couldn't meet me on a certain day because she had a meeting. She was going to be gone all morning, but I was supposed to come in the next day. So what I did, living in a van and being all excited about the possibility of this apartment and worried I would show up on the wrong date, I was confused in my mind, and I went in there by mistake. Now, she wasn't there, the leasing agent. I was a day early, and I showed up in the morning, and she was not there. And I sat and I waited. She had been in some meeting somewhere, and she came in, she saw me, she was very huffy. Somebody from the front desk had called her to let her know I was there waiting. She was mad, and she said, "I told you I had a meeting and I couldn't meet with you." She was really upset. But after she calmed down and a little time went by, she did show me an apartment, and she said, gave me the tour, did I want the apartment? I said yes. It was something that I would be able to afford. I plunked down my check. I wrote the full, deposit amount, and then they did a background check. And about a week later, she informed me that I would be able to pick up the keys. I got the apartment because in Washington State, which I didn't know, it is based on first come, first serve. So whoever puts the deposit down, fills out the application, has the background check that comes back clear, the first one gets the place. And so that's how the renting goes in Washington State. I didn't know. I thought I'd be competing with other people. Also, I jumped ahead of the line because I was confused in my head and went in a day early and was sitting there waiting. I was the first one to show up. Now, there were probably other appointments later that afternoon and the next morning before me, people who had signed up before me. But that's the miracle. That is how God shows up to bring us, answers to our prayers. That place, like I say, it is a hub of business and high tech, expensive, safe. How would I ever dream, of getting in there to live? But I did. It's like when I got my Toyota. It's like when I bought my van. I didn't think that anybody would extend me a car loan to get those things. So further now, the story continues. I lived in that apartment in Bellevue for about 5.5 years, and I was, pretty happy there. It's a beautiful city, and there's a lot of trails, nature trails and everything. But for some reason, my spirit or my soul, or I don't know, I just got it in my mind that I should move to Bellingham, which is further up north near the Canadian border, about 20 miles away from Canada. And for some reason that jumped in my mind. I didn't know anything about Bellingham. I just knew it was sort of a lot of wilderness areas, a lot of, mountainous trees and forests and things like that. And it's beautiful. And so for about a year, I had it in my head that I would buy a small piece of property with a mobile home on it out in the woods and have like total privacy and, quiet and everything. And that's what I would do. I even turned down, stopped the possibility of going permanent in a job that was further south that I would not be able to have had I moved up to Bellingham. I would be way out of the area. So I let that job go after being a contractor there. It was for a healthcare company. So I went through all the classes to learn, how to budget my money, what happens when you buy a house. You have to go through these classes before you are given, home loans in Washington State. That's a requirement before you get, home loan. And I learned that if I wanted to buy a mobile home, I would have to also buy the land underneath it. Most mobile homes are in a mobile home park and you don't own the land underneath. So you can buy the mobile home, but you can't buy the land underneath. So I would not be able to get a home loan for one of those places. I found some out in the boonies up in Bellingham that I could buy the land underneath. And I was talking to a friend on the phone one day, and he lives up in the area, and he told me, and he said, on New Year's Eve, my neighbors out here in the boonies were shooting off machine guns like for hours, to celebrate the new year. And he said, do you want to have neighbors like that have machine guns and they're shooting them off in the middle of the night? All right, kind of wild kind of people. And I said, yeah, no, that's not my kind of people. I don't want that now. So the dream that had come to me of buying a home in Bellingham and living in Bellingham, I just let go of it after about a year. Like, I don't want to live by machine guns. Okay, thank you very much. Not for me. Not my cup of tea. And I let it go. like 6 months later, I'm still living in Bellevue. I'm like, I'm just going to start looking for a place to live. The neighbor upstairs was getting loud and it was bothersome, and I decided I'm going to move. So I started looking and I found a place up in Bellingham for rent. Now, at the time, I also was in another contractor job. I was working with artificial intelligence, but on contract, and I was thinking, is anybody going to let me sign a rental lease if I'm working on contract? But the thing I had going for me was I had lived in the apartment in Bellevue and previously both places for 5.5, 6 years, and I paid my rent on time every month all that time. So I had that going for me. And so I was working on contract and I didn't know how long the contract would last. But I found this place, a mobile home in Bellingham, that would fit my budget. It was out in a beautiful area right next to a lake. I mean, I'm across this little lane, and then there's a neighbor's yard, and then there's a lake. So when I go out to my car, I see the lake. I mean, it's that close. And there's mountains, and there's, forests, and there's another lake down the road. Um, it's a wild area, trails, beauty. Um, Bicyclists, they ride bikes everywhere. They take their bicycle riding very seriously in Bellingham. People on bicycles everywhere, joggers, people walking their dogs. There's boats out on the lakes. There's lakes everywhere. And it's absolutely gorgeous up here. I just love it. The town's kind of funky. There's wall murals painted on buildings and, party lights in, restaurants and outside of people's houses. There's this crazy, humongous purple flamingo outside of a nursery, a store, covered with party lights. I love it. I mean, and it's the place that I really enjoy living. I'd like to drive around and see that. It's fun. So I'm now living here. My contract position let me and about 125 other people go about 3 months ago. But I'm sitting here. My answer's prayer. First of all, I'm out in nature. It's very quiet. I don't share walls with anybody in an apartment. I'm in a mobile home. I have a dedicated office in the back room that I wanted so badly. I didn't have that in Bellevue. I was in my living room and also in my bedroom when I did, office work. And so I have that. I have a beautiful little economy car. I never thought I would ever be able to have. It's a Prius. People make fun of them, but let me tell you, I prayed for a small economy car where I could park it easily in parking spaces. Really low mileage. It was under 50,000 miles when I bought it, and 2017. Hardly driven, in perfect condition, living in this beautiful place, dedicated office space, and I got laid off. But I was able to save money, and I'm praying to God every day. Okay, God is a part of my life. And after being laid off, another dream, all right, came true, where I'm now doing content. I am a content creator. I have written and published, my first Kindle book. I'm doing my YouTube channel, my Substack, my Rumble. All right, I have Facebook, and I'm doing these things. It's something that I've always wanted to have the time to do. I've tried starting businesses in the past, but I would always be working full time and then have to do that part time. My daytime would be taken up with work. I would be tired, and I just didn't have enough time to put myself full into it. So now I can do that. I have enough savings to live on for a while. I am collecting unemployment. It's great. I do receive Social Security. So all of this is the perfect time to do content creation full time. I'm enjoying it tremendously. I'm learning a lot. I'm taking classes. I have a mentor. Um, my unemployment is through a government program that, supports you by, paying the unemployment benefit while I am building my own business. And so recently I bought, you know, some new tools of the trade. My new computer tower I just received, and it is a Dell, which I've always wanted a Dell. My other one pooped out after 6 years. It's an HP, but a Dell, and a huge 27-inch screen, and then my other monitor, new webcam, new camera, and just some new things. And I still have money in the bank. So I'm feeling really good today. Now, the point of telling you all of this is these are the goodies, okay? The good things that have happened since I really started seeking the Lord Jesus, learning who He is in earnest. When I was in Everett, I really didn't know Jesus, and I was going through a lot of false teaching. And I believe that when you learn who Jesus is, the Bible has been rightly divided, and you've managed to uncover and give up the false teachings that you've had, that you're being misled by, like I was. Maybe you're not, but I was. That keeps you away from closeness to the Lord. I truly believe that, because when I started walking away from that and discovering all the false teaching I had gone through, things became clear. My life started getting better incrementally. It didn't happen overnight. It was over some time as I discovered who the real Jesus is, and my walk with Him became closer. My life gets better and better. My heart's desires are given to me. They come true. My prayers get answered. And that is what I want for you. And it's why I wrote my Kindle book, Reclaim Your Christ Connection, Crack the Discernment Code. It's on Amazon, and I will put the link below. But what I would like for you to do is reflect on your own experiences of God's faithfulness in unexpected ways and how He has answered your prayers. So I've created a free PDF of this story, in brief, that you can download and keep. It's free. I'll put the link below. And then I'll put the link to my book, Reclaim Your Christ Connection, Crack the Discernment Code, also below. And I hope to see you next time. All right, take care.